Welcome to the Rock the Stage Show. Each week, international media expert Rich Bontrager has in-depth and personal conversations with celebrities, top leaders, authors, speakers, and media professionals. Now, from the Rock the Stage studios, here's your host, the Trigger, Rich Bontrager.
Welcome back, Rock the Stage Show. Great to have you with us here tonight. 7 p.m. every Sunday night, we premiere a new episode of Rock the Stage Show. And we do want to let you know we're growing. We're expanding. We're now on Roku TV, Fire TV, IPTV, and of course the Brave Arts TV network. New partners as Rock the Stage Show keeps going higher and higher and higher. We're all about media. We're all about growing your brand. We're all about celebrities exposing and sharing what makes them so great. But I have to admit, one area that I actually love in entertainment is improv. I love watching people like Wayne Brady and others just make stuff up in the moment and make us laugh, smile, and we're surprised by what they can do. Well, tonight my guest can do that. But not just do that. He takes a guitar and brings it to life. I also have to ask myself the deeper question with this creativity. What sets creative people apart? What sets one actor, director, songwriter apart from others besides the natural giftedness? What is that thing that they have honed that makes them unique to go to the higher level that we go, I got to love them and like them even more? Tonight, we're going to get into that with my guest. Harold Payne is a multi-platinum songwriter, TEDx speaker, and master improviser who has written songs for such amazing artists as Rod Stewart, Patti LaBelle, Santana, and Kelly Rowland. And he's been a longtime collaborator with Bobby Womack. And literally, he has lots of work. Now, this is a great range. He has worked with Peter, Paul, and Mary to Snoop Dogg. That tells you enough right there. He's also a member of the group called Gravity 180. Welcome to Rock the Stage, Harold Payne. Welcome.
Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is.
We are
Wherever you
recording
are.
the data. Yeah, exactly. The power of streaming TV. You never know when it's going to be. I do have to confess, when I saw that you work with Peter, Paul, and Mary, I grew up listening to them on my father's LP records. That takes me way back, Harold.
Yeah.
That's great that you've had such a long creative career. Did you ever imagine you would have that long career?
No, I remember some sophomoric comments that I made on some interviews and stuff. I said, well, I don't want to be 45 and just playing in some club or whatever. It's like when I was in my 20s, and little did I know that what a blessing it has been to continue to play everywhere and do everything on into many decades past that, you know.
So you've seen a lot of changes. What adjustments have you had to make to keep a career alive like that? What did you intentionally do? What did you accidentally do to keep it going?
Yeah, well, that's a good question because I get asked that. You know, how do you sustain a career in music? And I think one of the most important things for me is to be able to do something solo.
Hmm.
Whatever it is that you do, that you have that at least in your, bag of tricks that you can play solo, because you don't have to answer to anybody else, and it's easy to travel, and you just show up, and usually you get paid more. And then if you have a group, have a small group. You can always add on. You can have a core. Like I've been playing with a trio for many decades, and we're like family. We're a lifetime group. If we ever need to add people, it's just an add-on. And if it ever got to the point where they became so indispensable, then they'd be part of it. And then when I do these gigs, I found some things that make it original and fun for me.
Yeah.
What I started doing is, what it evolved for me with the improv side is I would go talk to somebody on a break. And it was a couple. I go, how'd you guys meet? Just regular conversation, not really in my mind trying to do it on purpose, but and they say, well, we met in high school, and he was a disc jockey, and I was a massage therapist or whatever. So I go back up and I go, they met back in high school in North Torrance High. You know, he said something cool. It was on the fly. She rubbed his back, and he rubbed it back or something. And they go about two sentences in. They go, that's about us, you know. And it just made it more fun, and it involves the audience. And then I started getting bolder and bolder, and eventually, I'd hear somebody say something, and then I started asking for titles, and that's
Oh,
when it hit a critical mass
yeah.
because I ended up putting it in all my shows now.
Mhm.
I ask for a title from it. At one point or another, I ask for a title from the audience and make up a song.
So, also, your songs are very positive, very uplifting. In the music industry, we don't get a lot of that. Did you intentionally pick that, or was that again you stumbled upon it and found out there's an audience for that?
Well, it wasn't as pragmatic as it was just from my heart. And I looked back on these songs that I've been writing. Pass it on. If you can't pay it back, pass it on. Music speaks louder than words. And and I thought, it's positive music. So I
Yes.
grabbed positivemusic.com at a time when I could still get that. And I just realized by just thinking back, who am I? What am I? And it was really more shining a light on what I naturally did rather than, hey, let me target something.
Now, from all of that, you also have worked with some greats, as I mentioned in the open. But been the opening act for Van Morrison, Kenny Loggins, and Hart. What was it like to blend your independent soul stuff and know that you're setting those guys up as the open act? How did that all come about?
Uh, it came about from you know that most important type of contact, nepotism. No, I mean my mom. Uh, Thanks, mom. My mom had a friend that she grew up with. She had three women that had known each other since they were infants, practically. You
Yeah.
know, and they were call themselves the Golden Girls. And one of them had a son who had just started working at ICM, which is an agency, and he got me a couple opening acts, and I did well. And so I started getting these tours.
Yeah.
I went out, toured with Kenny Loggins for a little bit. I toured with Air Supply, and then some of these individual shows that I did. And sometimes it was last minute. It's the Van Morrison thing is my friend wanted me to go to Scotland with him to go to this thing called Hogmanay, which is their New Year's thing. And I go, man, I don't know if I can afford it. And the next day I got a call. It was about 2:30 in the afternoon to be to open for Van Morrison at like 3 hours later.
Oh
So I
man.
hustled down there,
Wow.
and this is how the music business goes. I mean, the irony of ironies. So I show up, and it turns out that one of his guitar players was a guy that I had met, and he that didn't have anything to do with me getting the gig. But he said, "Hey, I'm in this group, and there's a new label called with Richard Branson." Um,
Virgin.
Yeah, Virgin.
Yeah.
And there was the first group that was signed or whatever. And he gave me his number. He goes, man, you'd be perfect for this label. And I was on my way to England, and I lost the number.
No.
I
No.
swear, and I tried to call and by the time I got there, the label had really
Oh.
expanded. And I said, yeah, I'm a friend of. They go, yeah, right. And I couldn't pierce the corporate veil. But I just threw that naturally into the story because it was, but it just that's part of the music business. You have so many almosts. Um,
Right. Oh yeah. Everyone lives on that almost moment. I almost got on Johnny Carson. I almost got on whatever. Um, Going back to what you said at the beginning about being solo on stage. There's something about commanding the stage. I grew up on John Denver, and he could just like you own a guitar, own a stage. There was something about that solo-ness that it does show you a different type of performer. Talk to that a little bit. Well, what's it like to know that you own the spotlight in a positive way, but now you have to own the crowd as a solo performer as well?
So glad we made it. So glad we made it. Keep it going. So glad we made it. So glad. Get ready, group 2. I'm so glad. So glad. I'm so glad. So glad we made it. So glad. You got it. So glad we made it. So glad. Even up in the balcony. Even up in the balcony.
And, you know, I came up with some techniques for what I always do, a really rocking song that could get them going. But then I'd have some mob psychology, you know, like, hey, I know you've been waiting a long time to hear the headliner and whatever, and you don't know who I am. So just to get out of your system, say, who are you? And go, who are you? And they'd laugh at it, and it kind of win them over a little bit. And then, you know, once and then I said, let's freak out the headliner. I want you to all I know you've been waiting a long time. Just go into a primal scream and just on the count of 3, just scream as loud as you can. It'll freak out the headliner. And they would all yell. And then somebody peek out of the dressing room and go, what's this guy doing?
What's he doing on stage? He's still in our crowd.
And that would give me permission to do what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know, and that's for a larger set, but for a more intimate audience, I mean, my favorite thing is to play I just played Saturday for a little concert with a friend of mine. We just each did a set. And it's like 60, 80 people in an intimate environment. I would take that over playing, you know, the Taj Mahal. I mean, it's just really connecting with an audience and telling stories and you know, just being natural, you know.
Well, I saw on your YouTube channel, by the way, check out his YouTube channel. You got to go to him. But I saw on your YouTube channel, you're in the back of a lift car. Talk about an intimate crowd. One guy, the driver, and you break out with an improv song about the driver. How cool is that to intimately have that and then make it up? How cool is that is for you, first of all, to be able to do that for them?
My name is Payne, and I have had the joy of riding in a lift with an identical triplet whose name is Marlon or MJ. He gave me a beautiful scenic ride today. He didn't stretch it out to try to make an extra buck. He was right on time, and it was just my luck. And he wanted me to play a little Bill Withers for him. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It's not warm when she's away.
Well, what was that was interesting because I got it was in DC. I was going from one gig to another, and I hopped in the back, and he goes, "Oh, you got a guitar? Are you going to play that for me?" And I said, "Sure." I break it out, and it was, you know, I go, "What kind of music do you like? What do you want?" He goes, "How about Bill Withers?" And I go, "Talk about, you know, throwing me in the briar patch." I mean, Bill Withers is my favorite all-time artist, you know.
Really?
And he's seeing me as a, you know, a lighter-skinned gentleman, and he was of the opposite, you know, and didn't expect me to, you know, break into something like that. And so I started doing the instrumental part of it and made a little improv, and then I went into the song, and he's singing a lot. It was a moment that you couldn't script.
Yes.
But it's one of my favorite videos because it's just a natural thing, and he's going, and then he's singing along with me. It was a cool moment.
And isn't that part of what does elevate some artists and separate from the crowd? You can do that. You can do it authentically, fun. It works for you. It works for them. Isn't that part of the separation I was talking about, that you find that extra level within you?
Yeah, it's a niche that, some people do it with their, they're just instrumental wizards. And
Mhm.
and for me, my golden ticket turned into being improv. And
Yeah.
I've used it in a lot of different ways. It started off with, like I said, just making up little ditties, and then when I started asking, in fact, I borrowed a little statement. There was a guy that was a chainsaw juggler on the Venice boardwalk, and he said, and he would not only uh, juggle them, but he'd turn them on and
My
throw them.
cousin used to do that. I'd be his Band-Aid man, and he
Uh,
would do the very same thing. Please go on.
Cutting edge, yes.
Yes.
And, um, and he'd always say, "Risking my life for your entertainment." So when I do my improv, I say, "I'm risking my reputation for your entertainment."
Now, the other
And
thing you do is crowd engagement. You actually have them join in, sing songs, sing riffs, sing breaks. How important is that, do you think, as a solo performer to elevate them into your act like that?
well, whenever it's possible without being cheesy,
Right.
I think I sent you a clip where there's a guy that I did some of my favorite shows ever. His name is Kyle Cease. He's an inspirational speaker, but he's also a comic, and he started doing these shows. He would do 2 full days and have all these things, and he was inspiring people. And I met him at a party. My friend Lynn Rose, who would be a good person for you to interview, who's also
We
friends with Robert
are
Snap.
working on Lynn right now. She's in the hopper, so thank you for plugging her.
Right. And I was at Lynn's house. She gathered a bunch of people uh, who she thought should meet each other, and she went around the room and said, give us a couple minutes about what you do. And it came around to me, and she said, Harold, I want you to do a recap song about everybody here. And so I did. And this guy, Kyle Cease, comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, I'm doing this show. You'd be the perfect guy." And so what I did is I do a kickoff song, just go out and make something up,
Yeah.
or use something that I had and embellish it with something that ties it into the day. And then at various points, he'd just point and say, "Go." And I'd be taking notes about what was going on. And it was amazing. We really worked. And sometimes I found different ways to do improv where he had a new book that was
Mhm.
coming out. So I took the book and I said, "All right, somebody give me a page." So somebody say, "All right, 27." And if somebody give me a paragraph, 3, okay. And I read the paragraph and I'd make up a song about it. So it hawked his book, and it was an interactive thing. And then it was such a large audience. If I asked for a title, that it was hard to hear people are shouting out things.
Right.
So I got this little ball and threw it out, and whoever caught it, and so because people were saying you didn't make that up on the spot, and I said, well, so this was the way to let them know that it was random. So all these things walked a little bit
Yeah.
further out in the plank. I call it
Yeah.
plank the bridge, where it feels like it's a bridge to the other side.
And it does set you apart. And it is something that true performers, artists can pull off and others really can't. And was going to ask you how much of the improv is you have a shell, you know a song or riff, something you can work with, and then the rest of it is truly ad lib in the moment. How much of that is a blend, or is it
Well,
mostly
sometimes
made up in the moment?
it's all improv. I mean, I've been playing along enough so that there's certain grooves. Like
Mhm.
if I'm picking up my guitar and you
Yeah,
say, sometimes I'll say, when I ask for a title from the audience,
yeah,
I'll say, give me a title, any title you wish. Not something that's been done before, something you made up yourself, and I'm going to improvise a song right here on the spot, risking my reputation for your entertainment. And if there's more than one, we'll put it to a vote. And I'll say, this is not Stump the Band. We come up with a title that already exists. I've got this rap down. And so, and so sometimes I'll say, do you want it rock, reggae, blues, country,
right,
bossa nova,
yeah,
or whatever? And sometimes they think one is harder than the other. Like often they'll say reggae because reggae is just hip. No matter, you just go, you're already rocking. But
yeah.
sometimes they'll go, okay, bossa nova, but I love bossa nova, so I'll just, and sometimes I'll fall into grooves that I know, but sometimes I'll deliberately step out and do something that I don't know where I'm going, you know?
Wow.
Like if you said play an A and do a 3/4, and I'd go, okay, I don't know where I'm going, and my fear is showing, whatever, to do something different. So it's not always, I don't always have a formula. There are grooves, but it's never the
Right.
same usually. But sometimes if there's like several different types of reggae grooves, and I feel real comfortable falling into those. But
Do you have an improv song about you? Have you ever done something that you're the master improv guy, the songwriter? Have you ever done something for yourself like that?
I did. I did. It's on. I have one that's on my website.
Now, you also transitioned into public speaking. So you have a TED Talk out there as well, preparing for spontaneity. Can you give us a little capsulize of what that's all about?
Yeah. Well, yeah. By going, my friend Janice Stanfield um, talked me into coming, who I met through the Positive Music group, Empower Music and Arts. Said you got to go, because she was doing these things called keynote concerts,
Mm,
where you combine music and speaking. And the thing is, as a musician, if you sing songs and then uh, talk about them in between,
yeah.
you make a few $100s. If you speak and do songs in between, you make a few $1,000s. You know, and because there's just so many musicians crawling to get,
Right.
so I thought I'd go and try it. And as it turned out, about the third or fourth year I went, I was really fortunate because people go for decades and don't get on the main stage. And I got asked to recap all 9 of the main stage speakers. So basically, after each speaker went up, I would make up a song about what they just talked about. And
Oh,
I had just started getting into that. Because sometimes I did some things with Mark Victor Hansen, the guy that
yes.
Soup for the Soul guy, and
Hmm.
Jack Canfield, and
Yep.
and I would do some of their events, and where the same thing I did with Kyle Cease, where they'd have me come up and do a variety of things, either do a kickoff song or do
Hmm.
something fun right here, just as a break, or recap the last 2 speakers that came up.
Yeah.
And so that became really the most unique thing I think that I do, is the recap improv.
Yeah.
And somebody who saw me do that said, can you reverse engineer how you do that? And that's how I got the TEDx talk. So
Now,
that's
I
what
know you talk about trust being a big part of that.
exactly.
Trust in what when you talk about that?
Well, experience uh, begets confidence, becomes trust. So when we're speaking, we're improvising all the time. Right now I can talk as fast as I want, gestures,
Yes.
talk slowly. I can change my intonation,
Mhm.
and it's really quite amazing, because when you first start talking, it's just a few words and you're kind of bumbling along here, but everything I do is I'm improvising. When you think about how amazing that is,
Yes.
so um, songwriting, doing it as a song, is something that, like that, evolved. I took baby steps and I did it, put in the 10,000 hours. The experience gave me the confidence to trust, to know that, hey, anytime somebody asked me, you know, I know I can do something. And by being on stage and doing it so many times, um, I trust that even if I get stuck or appear to get stuck, I'm comfortable enough on stage to laugh at it and bring the audience in with me. No, I'm not going to rhyme orange, or whatever. And it just, and them seeing you have the same information at the same time as them makes
Mhm.
them appreciate what you're doing all the more.
Very well said. That's part of why I love doing unscripted, impromptu interview shows like this,
Right.
because I love living in the moment. I never know what's going to come next. And sometimes you're right. You land on a grenade and you have to admit you landed on a grenade and that was a bad one. Laugh it off. And the audience appreciates your transparency. I think you go up in the audience's eyes sometime at being that transparent and trusting them to trust you, right?
Absolutely. I call that embracing the elephant.
Here we go.
And I did a recent talk as a more expanded that I was I've been doing these tours around Southeast Asia with an organization called Together We Can Change the World, and it's mainly speakers. We went to the Philippines and just got back from Vietnam. Awesome, a great group of people, and they're all mainly speakers. And I do a recap of their talk after each one goes up. It's daunting, but
Yeah.
exhilarating at the same time. But the thing is, when you're doing it, um, it, what I came up with, because I did a longer talk, I came up with, it starts with living in the I don't know, kind of having the clean slate, and then
Yes.
embracing the elephant, which is, taking whatever's going on in the room. You see groups that play that have kind of a scripted show, and
Yeah.
something accidentally happens and it becomes a happy accident. They put it in
Yes.
the show because it works and because even though it happens spontaneously. So then
Yes.
the next thing is setting the table for happy accidents, where you
Mhm.
find ways to put yourself out there to make the spontaneity happen. So those are kind of the three levels that I talk about now when I give that talk on preparing for spontaneity.
And keynote speakers are missing that because they are so scripted. They are so, and because if they get distracted, they lose their spot. But what you're talking about is embrace it, work your way back to the spot.
Yeah,
And to
taking
me,
that
that's so
moment
much more fun.
and putting it into your act.
Yes, yes, exactly. Now, you have done pretty much solo self work a lot. That you also do have a one man show, right? You have a one
Yeah,
man drama show
that's
you got
just
going.
something that recently evolved. I came up with this title, Under the Radar, Over the Moon.
Yes.
And it sat around for a while, and finally I saw this woman that's coaching people on solo shows, and she said, the only I took a little session with her, and she said, the only way you're going to do this is you give yourself a deadline. And so I gave myself a deadline, which is what you do with improv. It's a deadline with a very short leash.
There's a lifeline on there, right?
Yeah,
There's a life shelf
the
life.
deadline is now. But so I gave myself a deadline, and I gathered a bunch of photos, and I just took. It was like shuffling songs. Had 20 songs, and I go, which ones work with this, and which ones can I put
Yeah,
together in a sequence? And it really was life changing for me because I. It, it was a little bit about what I've been doing when I play for intimate audience, telling stories,
right.
but the linking it together, tying one thing together and putting them in a sequence that worked, that didn't necessarily have to be chronological, and it was really a game changer for me in terms of just another arrow in the quiver of things that I can do.
Now you also debuted that at the Santa Monica Playhouse, right? How
Yeah,
cool was that?
I did it at the Santa Monica Playhouse. I felt definitely imposter syndrome. All these
Wow.
people that are actors, but it they bought it. It worked. And then I did the Fringe Festival, the Hollywood Fringe Festival, where I did it
Mm,
several times at the Zephyr Theater. It's another world, and sometimes it's fun to go in where you're the rookie, and you just lay yourself out and go, I'm a beginner, and open yourself up to that beginner's mind, and it really is. It's a cool thing, and people reach out to you when you do that. And by the fourth or fifth, time I did it, I felt like, okay, I'm feeling like I'm into this.
Well, it's part of the trust thing again. It goes back to that you got to trust the audience, trust yourself, and trust that you're going to grow through it. This isn't a one time you're a star. The trust factor is in the growth.
Yeah, and because I've done so many different forms of performance, you trust that something's going to come out, and if you forget a line, that's where the improv comes through, and sometimes it creates a moment that's even cooler.
Now, you've appeared, you've done music, you've done this, you've done that, but you also started something during pandemic on Facebook Live, the 2-Song Tuesdays, and you've kept this going. Applaud to you to keep it going. I mean, I think that's the future of streaming TV and all the things we talk about here on Rock the Stage. But what was it like for you to jump into the TV type medium to do this live on Facebook?
Well, I have to thank. There's a guy named Rick Barker who is who who helps a lot of musicians and has classes and things you sign up for and everything. There's a lot of people out there doing that, but he was kind of my guy. And I had a private session with him, and he said, "This is a once in a lifetime opportunity." So that's what made me go, "Okay, I'm going to go online and do it." And so many people showed up that I went, "Oh my God!" So I was hooked, and so I started doing. In the beginning, I did like 45 minutes or whatever.
Mhm.
I called it Third Thursday. Alliteration, I think, always helps to have people remember.
Yeah.
But then I thought, sometimes when I go to someone else's presentation and it's like hour long or so, if I want to leave and you slip out the back, you feel guilty or whatever. I thought, I
You
want
can't
to.
do that online. Everyone sees you leave.
While I was doing that, I thought, why don't I do something shorter? And I came up with this
Yeah.
idea of 2-Song Tuesday. Once again, the
Yeah.
alliteration, one cover song, one original. And then it turned out that I started also doing an improv.
Oh,
So what I do is I'll do one of my favorite cover songs, and then one of my original songs. And then people put titles in the chat. And then I'll pick one. Sometimes if there's be 6 or 8, and I'll do one with all of them
oh,
and
wow.
somehow make a song out of it.
Yeah.
But so it just turned into a thing. And the cool thing about that is that I'm not taking up too much of their time. It's 20
Mhm.
minutes,
Yeah.
maybe 25.
Endless creativity by being able to do this on your own, self-producing, self-creating. That's the wave of the future. And you're ahead of the curve now because you've been doing it for 5 years.
And I find that the consistency
Yes.
is what, and being in the public square. I mean, it's not a giant thing, but what it does for me, keeping my chops together,
Yeah.
as well as keeping a core group of people that appreciate it,
Yeah.
and new people that drop by, and somebody I can say, "Hey, if you want to see one of the things that I do, check this out."
And by the way, new stuff is still coming out. You're still writing, doing stuff, and you've got songs soon to be released on an album, but they're over 1 million views on YouTube as you've teased them out, right?
I found this guy who started off being my tech guy, and I didn't even know it, but he actually runs a label, and he knows all about how to put things out and promote them and stuff.
Yeah.
So I started putting out some singles, and I've put out 5 or 6 of them, and each one it grows. I mean, on YouTube, I'm getting, the last one I've got already a quarter. It's been out for a month. There's a 250,000 views on it. So, but the way people are doing, they're releasing one song at a time,
Mhm. Yeah.
and then putting out the EP or the album. An EP is just like a mini version of an album.
Yeah.
It stands for extended play, which went back to the disco era where they had on one side of the album, it was
Yep.
the regular version and the extended play version on the
Yeah.
other. So people were putting out maybe 3 versions of the same thing. I had this one, Kelly Rowland did an album of like 10 different mixes of the song Daylight that I wrote with Bobby Womack. So, it's just turned into something. So at the end of this, I'm putting out an EP, and you get more bang for the buck by putting out one at a time and then putting out the EP.
Well, Harold's got so much information, so many years and iterations the way he's done. Here's
Stop
his
me.
website. So what are they going to find on your website? Because it's packed full of goodies.
Yeah, there's more than you'd ever want. I have places where that are for meeting planners to go, where it shows me doing different in front of different audiences, and shows me speaking, and one where I have a little house concert page, because I love, I've done some things for 10,000 people, but put me in front of 30 people at a house concert, and I'm in heaven, because it's like buying a piece of art from the person that made it.
Absolutely love it. Again, go check out the website, the YouTube site, all the different things he's got going on. So you've written, you've collaborated, you do solo, you do public speaking, you do drama. How do you label yourself? What do you consider yourself? A storyteller, a songwriter, an improviser? What are you?
That's a good question. I'm all of that, and I'm just grateful. That's what I am. I'm grateful that I get to make my living doing what I love since I was 20. And I started making my living playing with Rich Riley and the Tail Feathers, doing Motown to Temptations and Four Tops and whatever, and still going all these years later. And I'm really grateful to be able to do what I do and make my living doing something I love. I mean, how fortunate is that?
Exactly. Well, before we let you go, can I ask you to do an improv song about our time here together? You say you do these recap songs. I would love to have a recap song for Rock the Stage Show with Harold Payne tonight. Can you do
Okay, this is not planned.
that?
So
Everything on my show is unscripted. Everything is unscripted.
He says everything is unscripted, but you all be lifted by the time you check out this enthusiastic dude. He interviews people and finds out about them. Talented women and men. Yeah. Hey, Richard the Trigger. Shows get bigger and bigger every time he does them. Shining a light on folks around the world. It's like a book, and every time he turns another page, somebody new steps in and rocks the stage. Rock the stage. The Trigger Man himself, unlike anybody else, knows how to make you feel comfortable in the light. Makes you feel alright. Put out your best and he takes care of the rest. Rock the stage. You spend an hour with the sage.
Woo! That is amazing. Thank you, Harold. That is one of the best ways to ever land the plane on Rock the Stage Show, because it is all unscripted. I love that people shine on camera, shine on stage, and elevate, and you nailed it. Thank you, my new friend, for being on the show.
If I were doing a thing we said, I want to rock, I'd be more like,
oh,
rock the stage. Come on and rock the stage. Step up and tell your story in all your glory. Hey, hey, hey. Come on and rock rock the stage. Anyway,
Woo!
you see, you can't. Once you get us started, you can't turn us off. So.
You put a quarter in, and you get much, much more, don't you?
Yeah.
Harold, thank you very much for being on Rock the Stage show. Again, people, check out the website, go to the YouTube channel, support this man, and if he's in your area, you got to go check out Harold Payne. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, brother.
Rock the Stage show, always bring you the best, as you heard. Wow. We're going to come on back for more shows like this because you're asking for them, you're wanting them. And, Rock the Stage does scour the world. One of the ways we do that is with my show wrangler, show runner, Robert Stack. You've heard about him before, but Robert's the one that put me in touch with this amazing man. So thank you, Robert, for continuing to bring the best of the best to Rock the Stage show. Don't forget, we're on Amazon Fire, we're on Roku TV, Bravehearts TV Network, and IPTV now, along with every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we premiere a new show right here. Join the live chat conversation and see what's going on with Rock the Stage. Until then, it's a Trigger Rich Bontrager saying, have a great week and keep on rocking.